All right. Good afternoon. Good morning, everybody, wherever you are. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for attending our session today. My name is Ana Soler. I am NATISL's chairperson and happy to welcome you to our session where we're absolutely thrilled to let you know about our collaboration. And yes, thank you, Esther, Constance. Thank you so much for being here. So want to tell you a little bit about NATISL before we get started. We are a nonprofit organization that was established in 2019, and we are very proud of the work that we have done so far to connect multilingual families, educators, and of course, independent and school-based interpreters and translators who are working towards language justice. So I'm glad to see many of you here today, and I know many of you will be watching this recording and learning about our work and also our collaboration with amazing organizations as well. If you look on our website, you'll find a lot of great resources for you to use. We have established standards and best practices, a code of ethics for interpreters and translators. And we have a couple of advisory boards that help us and inform our practice, including a multilingual family advisory board and also a languages of low dispersion advisory board. So you'll see a lot of translated materials on our website that could be useful in your practice as well. And of course, we have a lot of different opportunities, such as this one for quality professional development and foundational skills for interpreters and translators. We are also developing a national certification test for interpreters and translators in education. I'm happy to let you know that we are towards the last phase of our pilot testing. We have done quite a bit of work, a lot of research to make sure that the test is respectable and valid, and that it follows all of the steps needed to qualify interpreters in education. And so we're hoping that our first set of pilot testers take the oral test sometime in May, and hopefully by the fall we will have an actual test to offer to the community. So we are very thrilled to be able to do that. A lot of work, a lot of volunteers working in this process, but the final product is definitely worth it. So we're looking forward to announcing more about that specifically. But as I mentioned, lots of resources for you to take a look at, lots of best practices for educators, but also for interpreters and translators. Lots of information translated for those of you who speak different languages and who have interpreters and also school-based personnel working as interpreters to help and support your families in your schools. And we do have a school where we have a variety of courses available to interpreters and translators, not only for those foundational skills, but also for additional continuing education. So looking forward to seeing many of you there as well. Throughout the session, I'll be putting some resources on the chat that may be useful, but please also complete a session evaluation and we'll provide you with a link to do that. And now, just super happy to introduce you to our speakers. We actually met in person, which is really hard to do these days, but they're from the Center for Literacy and Learning. And super happy to have them both here, and I'll let them introduce themselves, but I'm really thrilled to be able to start this collaboration. And I know we're going to be doing a few more sessions together. So I look forward to learning with you and really, contributing to this work, which, as we were just chatting a little bit before, we really need to be as strong together as possible. So I'm going to let Brenda and Lauren introduce themselves, but thank you so much to all of you for being here, for watching this recording. And Brenda and Lauren, take it away.
Hi, good morning, everyone. We are so excited to be here with you guys this morning. We are from the Center for Literacy and Learning. We're located in Louisiana. So we have offices in Baton Rouge and in Metairie, which is, for those of you who are not local, very close to New Orleans, Louisiana. We work hard every day to advance literacy and learning through evidence-based practices in the classroom, home, and community. And our vision is that everyone is empowered through literacy. Going to introduce our team to you guys. We actually have all of our team on the call today, although Brenda and I will be the primary ones presenting. Hi, my name is Lauren Sisk. I am a family engagement specialist. I come with a background in mental health. I am a licensed clinical social worker here in Louisiana. I've worked in the schools with a variety of different populations, as well as a special education population. And I also have a background in working in hospital social work as well. And I'll let Brenda introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brenda Malara, and I am also a family engagement specialist for the Louisiana Statewide Family Engagement Center. I'm actually bilingual, so I do speak Spanish fluently and read it and write it. And I have worked as an interpreter and as a translator for the school system. I worked for the Jefferson Parish public school system, which is the largest school system in Louisiana. I worked for them for 18 years, and I obviously worked with for them in the English as a second language department. I've also worked with seniors 65 plus, helping educating them so that they would understand the Medicare program and prevent fraud and everything with that. So my background is a little it goes from one end to the other, but everything I have done has been because I'm a bilingual, and so I've been able to use my resources, helping them navigate both languages.
I'll let Sabrina introduce herself next. You're muted, Sabrina.
I was waiting for Lakeisha. I'm sorry. My name is Sabrina Marsh. I'm the director of the Louisiana Statewide Family Engagement Center, coming to you with about 32 years of experience in public education in and around the state of Louisiana, both as a teacher, as a school leader, and as a district and a state leader in education, working with the Louisiana Department of Education and also working in East Baton Rouge Parish. In East Baton Rouge Parish schools, working with all families, but I did have the unique experience in my career of working as a school leader in a school where I had a population of English language learners that were above 35%. So I've had a lot of experience in working with families that are coming to us as English learners and making sure that we did the best job possible to support those families and those students so that they could actively participate in our education system.
Thank you, Sabrina. Lakeisha.
Good morning, everyone. I am Lakeisha London. I'm also a member of the team, this awesome team. I come with almost 30 years of educational experience. I was a principal for over 20 years in New Orleans, schools only. So I'm kind of unique in that arena. And I'm just happy to be on the call with you guys.
Thank you guys so much. And that's our team. So let's dive into it. Today, we're going to talk about advocating for multilingual families, building bridges through family engagement, and support strategies. The objectives of the presentation today are to strengthen partnerships between home and school to support the success of multilingual students, to recognize and leverage the unique strengths and contributions of multilingual families, to foster a culture of mutual respect and inclusion throughout the school community, and to promote continuous innovation and persistence by encouraging all participants to explore and adopt creative approaches until effective solutions are found. So first, we're going to talk about embracing your role in building connections, but also what is family engagement? In order for us to actively and effectively engage families, we have to have an understanding of what that is. School leaders and educators, particularly those working with multilingual students, are in a unique position to foster a culture of success within their school community. A critical component of multilingual student success is engaging families in the educational process. Interpreters and translators play a key role in building bridges in communication gaps, ensuring that all families, regardless of their language or background, are informed, involved, and empowered to support their children's learning. This is not the job of a single person. We all have to work together. Engaging multilingual families can only work if all members of the community are committed to the broader mission. So let's talk a little bit about family engagement versus family involvement. We hear those words and we think they're interchangeable, but there's actually a very distinct difference between the two. In their book, Building Parent Engagement in Schools, Larry Ferlazzo and Lori Hammond explore a distinction between parent involvement and parent engagement. They say parent involvement starts with the school. So kind of think of this as like the school working for the families and the students they serve. The ideas and energy come from the schools and government mandates. Schools try to sell their ideas to parents. School staff and public institutions might feel they know what the problems are and how to fix them and determine the criteria to use in the evaluating success. So this is without input from the parents. They're kind of coming in and saying, oh, I think I have an idea, making assumptions about what the needs look like, and trying to fix those without any input from the voices that they're trying to help. Parent engagement, however, begins with the parents. So think of this as working with the families. Ideas are elicited from parents by school staff in the context of developing trusting relationships. They emerge from parent community needs and priorities. More parent energy drives effort. So they're actually taking in the voices of those that they're trying to help. And rather than making assumptions, they're getting the information directly from the source of this is how we're going to help you versus how can we help and support you. This approach is more sustainable than asking the busy staff to plan numerous parent activities, take on extra responsibilities, and dig even deeper into their energy reserves. In addition, when parents have the opportunity to shape activities and programs that benefit their families, they become more invested in ensuring those efforts succeed. So when they have a part in planning and know that their voices are being heard, we're building that level of trust, we're building that relationship, and therefore they're more likely to participate in those activities. And I will let Brenda start with some of the strategies for how do we build these relationships.
Okay. You want to advance? Okay. So obviously, as interpreters and translators, like I mentioned, I've worked for the school system as an interpreter and translator throughout my time there. The number one thing is to learn about your multilingual population. And we're doing this presentation as a perspective as, okay, how can you as an interpreter and a translator help us bring family engagement back into the schools? So you can ask yourself, what do you know about multilingual students and families? And, as an interpreter, you always want to know a little bit of background about your client before you're going to work with them. So again, with your families, you're going to want to know about what it is that makes them interesting and who on your staff perhaps works most closely with your multilingual families. Also, what would be valuable for your staff to know? If you don't know this information about your families or your multilingual students, find out what are the native countries of your multilingual population. So in the school, it's very important that you know who is attending your school and what countries are they coming from. How many of the multilingual students were born in the US? We know that a lot of these families have come into the US and are now having children here. So how many actually were born outside of the country and how many were born here is very important. What are their native languages? Some families speak 2 or 3, not necessarily English, but they do speak other languages, from their country. What are the educational backgrounds of the families? That's very important. We know that, for example, in Latin America, some of the countries, unless you go to a private school, it's very difficult to get a very good education from the public school system. Whereas in other countries, for example, we know that if you're coming from Mexico, you have some very good schools, and these children have been able to be educated there so that when they do come into the country, they do have a strong foundation. So it's important to know what the educational backgrounds are and also how were the school systems organized in their native countries. How have the families experienced, have they experienced war or any other traumatic events such as natural disasters? Again, going back to Latin America, you know that a lot of these families that have come into the US have come in because they were affected by hurricanes, for example. Remember the hurricanes that happened in Honduras and Nicaragua in the past few years? That has made some of those families having come to the United States. Also, not necessarily war, but political unrest in Venezuela, for example. We've had a lot of influx of families come in because of that, and also the political unrest in Nicaragua and Cuba. In the past year, we've had a lot of Cubans immigrate to the United States because of that. Integrating cultural traditions of the multilingual families throughout the school is important. You can ask yourself, what are the multilingual students' cultural behaviors and values? Also, what are the celebrations and holidays that they observe? And how does the staff feel about the changes in the school population? So, for example, yesterday I was reading a press release from the Jefferson Parish School System. There had been some concern about students that observe Ramadan, for example, that were not being respected in the schools. They were making these children that are fasting, that still attend school, sit in the cafeteria. And so some parents were really, really upset about that. So the Jefferson Parish School System, for example, put out a press release yesterday that they are accommodating these students and giving them the opportunity to sit somewhere else during lunchtime so that they can have the peace and quiet that they need, perhaps for praying or for just reading, and not necessarily having to interact with their schoolmates in the cafeteria. So it's this type of accommodations that some of the schools are doing to help these students and, showing respect for what they are doing with their religion. And also, we know that sometimes the staffs at the schools, they're not all agreeing. For example, when I was working in the school system, I had colleagues that didn't really support students having services provided to them so that they could learn English. So if you know about how these staff members feel, it's a little easier to navigate the situation when you go in and to do your jobs. Also, some of the strategies that you can use are to avoid scheduling important events such as conferences or tests on major holidays and celebrations that large numbers of students are likely to miss. Also, it's important, we recommend that the staff members share these dates out with their whole staff so that they understand what days would not be good days to schedule these conferences or tests. Also, learn about, recognize, and celebrate special events or holidays throughout the school. Sometimes if you just, do that, families will feel more welcome, the students will feel like they belong, and also you're showing respect to them, and then inviting families to share their food, their activities, and music at both the school events and in the classroom. That makes them feel that, they belong to the whole school environment and family. Creating a welcoming environment for multilingual families is very important. So we recommend that, that they do as much as they can to make these families feel like they belong there. So if you can imagine arriving at a school in a new country where no one speaks English or your language, and you can't communicate with the staff, how might that make you feel having to leave your child there? Now, if you picture the opposite, where someone greets you in English or in your language, and you notice an American flag, for example, in this situation in the hallway, how might this change your experience as a parent compared to the first scenario? So the strategies that we recommend is that you ensure that families know how to gain access to the building, for example, especially if doors are usually locked during the school day. if you don't understand why, for example, the families don't understand why schools are locked and they show up one day and they can't get in, that might make them feel really, really upset, or they may panic. But if they already are aware of that, that this is going to happen, but they know how to gain access, it'll make it easier for them. Also, posting signs throughout the campus in multiple language makes them feel more at ease when they arrive, because they can understand, where certain buildings may be or where they need to go. And also, if you display the maps and flags of the students' native countries, it's just a warmer feel for them, that they belong and that they're welcomed. Also, we tell them that they should ensure that their bilingual staff and volunteers are visible throughout the building. If they can find someone that they can communicate with, then that makes them feel at ease. Also, we tell them to include bilingual books in the school library and classrooms, so that when these children, as they're learning English, they can still find a book in their language that they can read and still learn that the reading foundation, even though it's in their native language, until they assimilate and can understand and read English. And also, we encourage the teachers to create a welcoming environment within the classroom. Some teachers I have observed throughout the years have greeted their children or their students in different languages as they walk in the classroom, making them, all the children feel welcome. So we also stress that you should show that you value your family's native languages. So we ask, you can ask yourself, what is the current attitude toward the native languages of multilingual students in your school at this time? I know that right now, a lot of things are happening. So it's even more crucial at this point that we understand what the current situation is in the schools. Also, are students encouraged or discouraged to use their native language in the classroom? And do families know where to get information in their native language? It's very important that families, that schools that have a high population of multilingual families perhaps have the school rules, the school policies and procedures, or anything that's very crucial and important, perhaps printed out in different languages in the office, for example, or even in the library, where the families can go and pick up a pamphlet or a one-pager or something that they can understand. Also, we recommend that if they have a website, that they also have these resources available for these families, so that they can look for the information in their native language and understand what it is that they need to read and know. It's easier for them to do that if you give it to them in their native language, rather than English, especially if the parents still don't have enough skills to understand what they're reading. Also, posting information in multiple language, I already touched upon that, is very important. And encouraging families to read or tell stories to their children in their native language. As an educator, it's important that even though the children don't speak or understand English completely yet or fluently, that they still continue to tell stories and read in their native languages. That's very important to build this foundation of language. Also, offering family sessions, workshops, and classes in families' native languages. If they don't have somebody that can come in their in the different languages to teach the workshops, at least have an interpreter that may be able to sit with the family or work with families and kind of let them know what's going on, so that they can kind of participate still, but understand what's going on. Hiring bilingual staff and recruiting bilingual volunteers to the extent possible. Sometimes we know that funding is very difficult, finding a budget to hire the bilingual staff. But if you can recruit some bilingual volunteers, that's very important. Sometimes parents that have been in this situation and now speak English are willing to go and volunteer to help the families that are coming in that are still trying to assimilate and learn the language. So even asking a parent to come in and volunteer is very important. It just makes things easier for the parents that need the help. And also informing families that they are welcome to bring their own interpreter to a school meeting is something comforting, because if the school cannot find or access an interpreter or translator, they can always just tell the family, bring someone that will be able to help you understand while the meeting's going on or the workshop. It's not recommended to bring your own interpreter, especially if it's a family member, if it's something like an IEP meeting or something to that effect. But if it's just something like a family night or pizza night or something that you want to participate in, but you still want to bring someone to help you, you can tell them they can bring their own interpreter. Finding ways to communicate with multilingual families. If you need to do this, we recommend that that you, for example, describe the communication of the school. Ask yourself, how would you describe the communication of the school with multilingual families? And also, have you explored all the available options that there are? Are you familiar with applicable local, state, and federal regulations regarding translations and the family access to information? So, for example, in Louisiana, the majority of the multilingual families live in the South. So Jefferson Parish, Orleans Parish, those are the largest parishes with the most multilingual families. And I know for a fact that a lot of these, the schools have resources in multiple languages for their students. So part of the laws here state that you need to have the forms in the different languages for this family. So they may not have interpreters or translators available at all times, but at least the documents are in their native languages. So get familiar. I'm sure as interpreters, you already know what those, especially the areas that you work in, you already know what the laws are. But we also tell educators to get familiar with what the laws state in your particular districts. To improve school-home communication, we recommend to them that they hire, when possible, staff that matches the linguistic needs of their population. Also, develop an ongoing relationship with community organizations. There are a lot of outside communities that are willing to come in and help, a lot of nonprofits that do have interpreters or translators on their staff that are willing to come in and help pro bono, the parents. And also we ask that the families, we ask them to ask their families how they prefer to receive the communication, whether it's through phone, email, text messages, etc. A lot of families use, for example, the WhatsApp application. So a lot of schools are using the WhatsApp to send out messages. And then, of course, the parents can just translate them with the different applications that are now available to them to do that. And then we also tell educators to avoid using translation websites, which could be imprecise and often inaccurate. If they can avoid doing that, we ask them to do that. If it's their last resource and that's the only thing that they have that will help them communicate with a family or translate a document, for example, then that's what they're going to use. But at least the family is getting something in their language that can help them and guide them with whatever information the school is trying to transmit. When it comes to the enrollment process, we ask that they make it manageable for multilingual families. Think about the enrollment process, for example. How does it work for these families? Do families get all the information they actually need? What might be some possible obstacles for this process? And which steps do you think need improvement? So some ways to approach the enrollment process for the multilingual families are, again, bilingual staff. When possible, hire the bilingual staff needed to work in the main office, have the translated forms available, have welcome centers have a centralized multilingual welcome intake center managed by bilingual staff that may help streamline enrollment and placement procedures, and have welcome kits available. Put them together that and make sure they include, for example, key information, basic school supplies, and education activities for your multilingual families. I've seen instances where churches come in and help, or they make like a little welcome center at a church where the families go there and have, you know, the staff that can help them. And the welcome kits, for example, at a back to school event, they have the key information in the backpacks. So there's, you know, schools are starting to get creative, working with community organizations to do this to help these multilingual families. And look for ways that multilingual families can participate and volunteer. How likely are multilingual families at the school to sign up for events or volunteers? If multilingual families don't feel welcome, they're not going to sign up or volunteer. So we encourage the educators to, again, have a bilingual staff, for example, on board, or bilingual parent that can welcome and explain to parents what events they can sign up for and be there. Are they aware of volunteer opportunities at the school? I used to work with a mom that didn't speak English, but she really enjoyed putting papers together or packets together for the teacher, or you know, or even helping her clean her classroom and manage it, you know, where she would organize it for the teacher. And that's what she would do. She would come into the school, volunteer that way, help the teachers and staff, wasn't necessarily having conversations with them, but guess what? Her child saw her mom there working and felt very proud of that. And so the child, you know, did better because of that. So it's little opportunities like that that we tell the educators they should take advantage of. And also, what skills and talents do some families have that they can offer the school community? Again, you have parents, you have dads, for example, that love to help and you know, carry boxes, move boxes around, come and build something. So even if the parents don't speak the language, we tell educators, bring them in, help them to show whatever it is that, you know, they're good at, and help them find something that they can do at the school, and therefore participate and be part of the school community in that way. You can also invite families to visit the school and their child's classroom regularly. You know, ask them to come in and sit there for a day, or also at lunchtime. Ask them to come have lunch with their child. Invite families to speak with their child's class about their native country, hobby, or their job. We would have parents sometimes come in, and even though they didn't speak English, they would come and talk about their countries and in Spanish or in Vietnamese. And the kids loved it because, you know, the ones that did understand were enjoying learning about that particular country. But then if they didn't, just hearing a different language, it was something that they really, really liked. Also, encourage families to volunteer in the classroom, main office, lunchroom, or library. Like I mentioned before, that mom that would come in and do that. And then bring multilingual and non-multilingual families together through student performances, a student culture night, storytelling, and exhibits. And this is very popular during, for example, National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is September 15th through October 15th. A lot of things are going on at the schools, at least here in Southern Louisiana. And a lot of the families participate that way. They have little mini fests. And then, you know, other schools that have other larger populations of other students, for example, Vietnamese or Arabic, they do the same thing in the springtime. They'll have a little multinational festival, and they invite all the families to come in to dress in their native dress, or, you know, the mamas cook and bring in the different dishes from their countries. And it's always something that the families and children look forward to. Encourage your multilingual families to take on leadership roles in the school. We tell educators to do this. It's very important. And you can ask yourself, do your parent and family committees reflect the multilingual population of your schools? If it doesn't, maybe we tell them you should think about that and bring on families to take on these leading roles there. And who is advocating for your multilingual students? Do you have that one parent that's always trying to advocate? Get them on there, get them on that and on that board so that they can help and then make the school committees reflect better, and look like the students sitting in your classrooms. Strategies are make sure that qualified interpreters are available so that the families can feel comfortable communicating their ideas in their native language. You offer multilingual families frequent and convenient opportunities to share their inputs, their ideas, their brainstorming, also in their concerns with you and the teachers in a variety of venues. We encourage the families to attend and speak up at the school board meetings, even if it is with an interpreter. And then we remind the school board members and district leaders to communicate the policies and the changes in their families' languages. So this is something that right now we are trying to push for more here with everything that's happening with the political climate. These parents need to understand what's going on. And now more than ever, your jobs as interpreters and even translators is very, very crucial. These families need to know what's going to happen in the school system, especially with their students, if something were to happen with them. So right now, more than ever, your job is very, very important. So before I end my part here, I just want to remind you, well, thank you first for coming to our first presentation as the Louisiana Statewide Family Engagement Center, but then we're going to have our second one, which is it's a 4-part series. Our second one's going to be on May 16th at 10 a.m. And that one's going to be about the cultural considerations in mental health. So that's something that if you're interested in, mark your calendars now. It'll be on May 16th. Lauren and I will be presenting this also. And just thank you for joining us today. Lauren's going to take over here. But if you have any questions, we will have a few minutes after this presentation to answer anything regarding this presentation. Or if you have any questions about our jobs and our role at the Louisiana Statewide Family Engagement Center, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Brenda. So I did just share a PDF document with you all in the chat, and it is about practical ways to kind of make some of what Brenda was talking about and those strategies come to life. So I did want to touch on a few things that Brenda has touched on, but also some additional ways to be a little bit more creative and innovative in engaging your ELL families. So we did touch on that first point there of bilingual communication, not just forms, but like if we have any newsletters that go out to families, invitations for different events, making sure that those are translated into the languages that are represented at our school as well. She did touch on like culturally responsive events and hosting events that celebrate different diverse cultures within the school, which not only helps these families to feel welcomed and engaged, but also teaches acceptance and cultural differences to school staff and school peers and other families who might not know this information. Another practical way is creating some English language classes for parents, offering these classes for parents of ELL students, focusing on practical language skills that will help them navigate school-related tasks and communicate with teachers. Introducing some family literacy programs, creating programs where parents and children learn English together. This can include reading, writing, and conversational practice, helping parents support their child's language development at home. You can also do some technology training. We have different procedures here than they might be used to in their home and native countries. So this could look like tech workshops in multiple language, providing trainings on how to use school-related technology, such as online gradebooks, the learning management systems, and educational apps with instructions available in the home languages that you're seeing in your populations. Mobile apps for communication, using communication apps that support multiple languages and can translate messages, making it easier for these families to stay informed at home, and easier for them to communicate with the people at the school as well. There are different apps that are educational based, where someone at the school can send a message in English and it will automatically translate it for the family in which they're sending it to. And then when the family responds, it'll translate it back to kind of help expand the communication, maybe when interpreters aren't available. Having bilingual parent-teacher association, like she was talking about, representation, having not just a seat at the table, but your voice actually being heard. Having parent mentorship programs where other families who have recently navigated the school system can help these families understand what the policies and procedures are in the school system. Because like Brenda talked about earlier, it can look very different than what they're used to in their native countries, and having someone maybe even from their native country that has recently navigated this can help them feel a little bit more at peace. Having student-led events, multilingual student presentation and family learning projects, parents will come to the school to see their kids. At a school that I used to work at an elementary school, and we had family engagement nights once a month, and each night that they did that, they would have a different grade level, like do a presentation. And these presentations can be culturally relevant, right? Or the student can maybe teach a song in their native language to their class, and it's something that they can present. And having different resource fairs, just so that these families know what's available within their community. This could be very new for them. Some of these families are just coming over and have no clue where to start and where to look. It's important that we not only address their educational needs, but all of their needs, letting them know where they can find supplies, food, formula, and things like that for their little ones, so that they are more likely to engage if their basic needs are met. So that's a little bit about what you'll read about in that PDF that I sent. It is a free resource that is available on our website. I'll drop the link to our website in the chat, but you can also scan this QR code. We have different resources on there. We do have them available in other languages that are more prevalent here in Louisiana. So we have Spanish, Vietnamese, Chinese, Arabic, and I'm missing one. Maybe Brenda can help fill me in. But we do have resources that are already translated for families in their native languages, as well as we have a widget on the website that families, as well as you guys, if you're more comfortable in other languages, can click and pick the language you want to read the website in, and it translates the entire website. So you can find out more about our programming on here as well, and contact us on our About Us page. It has all of our names and our emails as well. So if you have any additional questions, or if there's any programs that you think would be a great partner for us, we are definitely always open. So the website is in the chat. It's lasfec.org, or you can scan the code here on the screen. We, as well as, I know Natizel has one as well, but we also have a feedback survey. We ask that you complete this, as it helps us to improve our work and make sure that we're giving you guys the best quality of information that we can, and information that's applicable and that is usable, because that is the point here. We don't want to just feed you a bunch of information, but we want this information to be able to help you in your day-to-day work and interactions with your community. So we do ask that you complete this survey. It's very helpful to us, and we do have evaluators who hunt us down for the surveys to be completed. So please, if you can, scan this code and take a moment to complete the survey. It would be very helpful. One thing about the survey is it will have the date. The format is going to be, the month will be 03, and then it'll be backslash the day 1/4 / and then 2026. So that's the format. That's the only thing that normally tricks people up. If they don't get the correct format, it will hold them back.
Actually, it's 2025 still.
2025, I apologize for 2026. And then
No,
So
after
one
next year,
person is an hour behind and the other person is a year ahead. Okay.
And then, but the survey now does have that outline, like how to fill it in. So, I'm happy because we always had to remind people how to fill it in with the
it will
date.
stop you if that's not done
Right.
correctly. So I'll give you guys a moment to scan this code, and we'll also open up the floor to any questions that you guys may have, any comments. It can be questions about what we talked about today or just kind of getting more information on our programming. We are happy to answer anything that may come to mind.
Thank you so much, Brenda and Lauren. This is absolutely amazing information. So I know we have a few participants here live. I want to see if you have any questions or anything that you want to know more about. I do have a couple of questions myself, but I just want to make sure that we give our participants the opportunity.
And I just wanted to remind you that the work that we do, we are out there working with families and educators on family engagement. That's our main priority on filling in that gap that perhaps existed at one time, which was very strong, which was family engagement, where we're trying to do that again. So from a perspective of an interpreter and a translator, how can you help and support educators to bring back family engagement in the schools? So this is why, some of these things, maybe you've never seen them before or heard about it, but there's strategies that when you go into the schools to interpret for an IEP or an interpret for a family that is registering for the first time, or for an emergency situation, or you're interpreting for a legal situation, just keep these strategies in the back of your mind to share with the educators or the people that you're working with, or even the families, so that they can fill in that gap that we're trying to encourage again, which is so important, family engagement, because it does show, research shows that when there is family engagement, your children, your students are going to have success in school. And that's what we're trying. That's our aim and our mission, to help our students succeed in a school setting, regardless of their heritage, of their language, of their culture. We just want all children to succeed.
Absolutely, Brenda. And then that was one of the questions that I had myself. For example, one of the things that we talk about when we train interpreters and translators is to be as neutral, as impartial as possible. But we also know that many of us work. We have dual roles in our schools. We have the role of a social worker, or a parent liaison, etc. So how do you recommend that we share some of these resources or these strategies to kind of engage families? What are some things that we can do as interpreters to share that information without overstepping our boundaries, if that makes sense?
It is a very fine line, because again, like you said, you need to be neutral when you go in there to do your job. But, it is something that, you can go to our website, for example, and download these resources and print them out. And if something that you want to just share and give the parent, if they're asking you, how can I become more involved in the school? Or how can I help my child, succeed in the classroom? Or what are the milestones that I should be looking at, for example, in my child, as they grow? We have these kind of resources that you can print out and just share with them. So you're not necessarily, telling them, you're just sharing with them, information that it's not just for them, it's for everybody. It's for all children. So that's one way you can look at it. And again, I understand that right now, just the whole climate of what, is a little different. It's shifting right now, and we're just going to have to wait and see what happens. So it could be a little challenging right now. But when it's something, a little more like milestones, or how can, if my child is having a particular issue with mental health, for example, all of these resources are on our website. And if you don't want to do that, you can just share the website, for example, with them. Tell them to go and navigate. Yes.
Something to add though, Brenda, and something to add, Anna, the issue from the perspective of a school leader is all students need to be successful in order for your school overall to be successful. So to build those relationships and make sure that schools, school districts, school administrators, and teachers are focused on the fact that we're not trying to do anything extra for one population of students. We're trying to make sure that all populations of students have access to information and resources so that all of the students can be successful. And from the parent perspective, the same thing goes. We're not, to build those relationships and make sure they understand, we're not trying to push one group of families ahead of any other. We're trying to make sure that all families understand what's going on in the school building, what the information is their kids are responsible for learning, and, how they can better support that. So it's really just highlighting the fact that we want all this information for all families because we want all children to be successful. And school, and schools kind of understand that. They kind of get the picture that, okay, if I have a population of students, even though it's a subgroup, that subgroup performance is still a part of my overall school performance. So I want to know more and do more so that I can make sure these kids are scoring at benchmark and that they have books in their home, and that even if their parents may not necessarily be able to read in English, reading comprehension is reading comprehension. Are they reading at all? Are they discussing, literature? Are they making sure their kids have a safe space to do homework assignments? Are they looking at progress and, being positive role models and pushing their children to be successful? So it's, just a matter of building those relationships and having everyone focus on the fact that we want all the children in a school building to be successful.
Absolutely. And that makes total sense. And yeah, that's the ultimate goal, right? For everybody to be successful together, for sure. So I see, Virginia, you have a question. How should we handle situations when families bring their own interpreter? That's a good one. But we are unsure if they have been trained in interpreting. Excellent question.
Well, I know sometimes families do that because they have had experiences where they have come into a building and the school didn't have anyone on staff that was able to assist them. So now they're being proactive and they're bringing someone with them. So I can share with you in my own experience at my own school, what we would do was still have the school's interpreter there, because that's letting the family know that we're not leaving it up to you to make sure we're able to support you. We have someone here on the staff that's able to support you. And we would still speak, through the person that we had on the school staff. It wasn't that we excluded the person that we brought. They both participated in the conversation, because in most instances, when families do that, the person that they bring with them is someone that's a friend or someone that they trust or someone that they believe knows or understands more about the school or the school environment. So we did still, have that person to participate in the conversation, but we did always make sure that we used our own staff person so that families could, begin to understand there's always going to be someone here that can translate for you.
And I'm just going to chime in and say that has been my experience also. I was the interpreter that the school had, on staff. And then when the family came in with their own interpreter, I continued to be the official interpreter per se, but we never turned the other interpreter away. They participated. And a lot of times what would happen is they would understand that they were not going to be the main interpreter. So they would just, they would help the mom or the parents or the father, whoever was there, but they would always just let me do the job. So they were respectful in that sense.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that feedback. And that is definitely best practice, right? To make sure that the professional interpreter stays, because we know that educational terminology is very complex. And, it is important that we advocate for schools as well by being there and being present, and also for the families. So. And Maria, thank you for your question. Is there a language access complaint form, if schools or districts aren't offering language access services to families or students? Great question.
I think all districts handle that differently, so it depends on what the protocol is for the particular district that you work in. Sometimes it's not an issue of a complaint form as much as it may be that there is a person to report it to at the district office, because most schools that are in traditionally run districts are not in direct control over their availability to have documents translated or to have an interpreter on staff. Those things are usually handled through the district office. So, it's usually some protocol or someone for it to be reported to at the district office, as opposed to, whether or not there is or is not a complaint form. There may be districts that have something like that in place, but I know in most districts in Louisiana, there is a contact person that's responsible for making sure that those things are available and done in our schools. And that's the process of reporting.
Great point. And that's kind of how we used to handle it in our school district as well, just having a central person. Sometimes is the Title I or Title III representative that handles those complaints. So.
Then that's how it's handled here as well. It's through the Federal Programs Office.
Absolutely. Well, excellent. Any other questions from our participants? Okay, so thank you so very much. I do appreciate your time. We look forward to the upcoming sessions as well. I know we have one in May, and I know, Brenda, you said May 18th. If I have it correctly, I know we were
May
struggling
16th.
with
May
16th.
16th, yes.
Okay.
May
Thank you.
16th at 10 o'clock in the morning Central Time. And the topic is going to be cultural considerations in mental health and how some cultures view mental health. So it's again going to be curated for interpreters and translators, but it's very important information, especially with what's going on now. So we invite you to join us on May 16th.
And just to add to that, we will also be providing specific information on, supporting some of these families through some of the fears and anxieties that are coming up with the unknown, and the information that is being put out there, and not having a lot of clarity. So we will definitely be touching on, just specifically how to support families in this really uncertain and scary time for some of them.
Absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that. It is a very difficult time for families, for educators, I'm sure, and for interpreters and translators who are trying to do this work and providing, quality language access for everybody for the benefit of all of our families. So we really appreciate the time that you're putting to, to share this information with us, because we feel that we need to do something. And just, being here together and just sharing this time is a step. So thank you very much to all of you for being here today, for listening to this recording when you do. And we look forward to having you back in May. And thank you so much for everything that you do for our communities.
Thank you, Anna. We really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, everyone. We hope to see you guys again in May.
Thank you. Thanks.